I'm Scott, Elizabeth's husband. Um, when we were in that room, we were looking at all the pictures that you were looking at, and I think I should reintroduce myself. I had a lot more hair back then, so so here I am, with a little less. Um, when we made our first visit to the doctors and heard the diagnosis of ovarian cancer back in July 2012, I knew our lives would never be the same. In the most matter-of-fact way, there was just so much more to do. But from the moment word of her diagnosis spread, our family found that we were not alone. Your support took so many forms: flowers, meals, desserts, real good desserts, soups, good, get well gift items, texts, emails, phone calls, get well cards, errand running, supportive words, and visitations. In fact, we accumulated so many plastic food containers, and I'm told plastic is derived from oil and natural gas, that we could now easily commence a large fracking operation from our kitchen. We were and still are humbled by your generosity. I don't like to admit this, but it was also very needed too. Your thoughtfulness and kindness gave us the most precious gift of all, a bit more time and memories with Elizabeth. Thank you. A few words about my tie. No, Scott is not colorblind. This is the color that all other colors voted off the color wheel. It is a shade of teal, the color associated with ovarian cancer. You might say an unattractive color appropriately matching an ugly disease. If you would like, please make a contribution, and details are on the funeral home's website. Honestly, Liz would not be very pleased I am giving a speech at this service. She warned me not to be trite. I think it was easy to avoid this, though, because Liz was unique in so many ways. On my first date with Liz, almost 26 years ago, we went to Dee's restaurant in the DePaul area. By that time, I was a pretty experienced dater and had a list of about 10 to 15 critical questions I cleverly inserted into the conversation. Romantic questions like, do you own or rent the place where you currently live? Or, if you have kids someday, do you plan to continue working? Liz was not scoring well at all. But then she did something that changed my life forever. Liz leaned back in her chair, kicked up her feet, and rested them on the arm of the empty chair next to her. I had never seen a date do this before. I was perplexed. I did not know how to score this. And then of all things, she began to twirl her loafers around her bare feet. I thought, this girl has confidence. Liz had an engaging and rare comfortableness. I decided I would offer Liz extra credit for this surprise. On the strength of these extra credit points, Liz qualified for a second date. Elizabeth was a very low-key and even-keeled person. On our second date, Liz decided to cook for me. She took out a frozen pizza and put it on the rack in the oven. That doesn't sound good, no. After 20 minutes, she asked me to check on it. I opened the oven door and almost uttered out loud, oh boy. I saw that on the bottom of the oven, there was a jumble of melted cheese and sausage. After a few seconds, I realized that Liz had put the pizza on the metal rack upside down. Liz, you better see this, I called out. Liz opened the door, peered in, and very casually said, that doesn't seem right, and, and closed the oven door. Let's order in. I thought to myself, does this girl do this all the time? Elizabeth's confidence was evident at a young age. When she was 9 years old, her aunt and uncle sent her 2 gifts. I'm going to read the cards she sent back to them. Dear Aunt Sharon and Uncle Martin, I am sending the Globe and the Atlas book back because I didn't want to write a thank you note. Love, Elizabeth. Even in our relationship, in our relationship, Liz was president. Early in our relationship, Liz was president of the Young Leadership Division of JUF. Her involvement in groups continued to the Wilmette Community Nursery School, our grade school, executive board, and the New Trier Booster Club. It seemed it was never too long before Liz would be elected leader of each group. Once Liz was chosen as president and had come back from her first meeting, my duties as first man would kick in. My job was to get the large, heavy Rubbermaid container from Liz's car and carry it to the basement. Inside the container was a binder with the organization's bylaws, important flyers, and if lucky, a president's gavel. During all her various leadership positions, these different containers were never disturbed because Liz never needed any of these papers. Liz just knew how to lead. She made people comfortable, she truly liked people, and understood what the most important things to accomplish were. No instructions needed. Elizabeth loved to compete in all areas of her life. I really experienced this a few years ago when I began playing paddle tennis. I lost my first 13 matches, but I noticed that Liz usually won most of her matches. So I swallowed some male pride and asked her how come she won so much. Liz quickly answered, I say to myself over and over again that I refuse to lose, and I never leave the court between sets so I don't lose focus. I was desperate, so I thought her advice was worth a try. My next paddle match was a close one. My partner and I huddled before we began the final set. I said to him, my wife wins a lot, and she says that we have to say to ourselves over and over again that we refuse to lose, and we cannot leave the court until we are winners. I also added we should be prepared to throw our paddle rackets at our opponents' heads, if necessary. With Liz at her side, we now understood how to compete. We won. Maybe Liz learned how to compete from watching so much sports on TV, a lot of watching sports. Some of you may have heard me say that if there is someone on cable television sweating and in a uniform, Liz is likely watching. When Liz said that we needed a new couch for our family room, I replied what we really needed were bleachers. And watching sports with Liz was a unique experience. Liz would comment, I don't know why the Bears stopped using play action. It was working for them in the first quarter. And then 15 seconds later, Chris Collinsworth would say, you know, Al, it puzzles me why the Bears abandoned the play action, which had been so effective for them early in the game. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, Jim Nantz and Phil Simms merely mimicked Liz Green throughout their broadcasts. Liz would typically greet us with a pleasant good morning. She was a positive person at the start of each day, but that changed each fall. Liz woke up on weekend mornings and yelled out, do you know what day it is? Liz answered herself, it's game day. She acted that it was like her birthday each football weekend. She was so excited. Most of us know what BFF means, best friend forever. And Liz's best friend is Kevin Wood, who Liz met in the bank training program at Mellon Bank. I guess I might describe Kevin becoming part of my life this way. If you have ever bought a car, especially with the cold winters you have, you probably wanted heated leather seats. But in order to get the heated leather seats, you may have also had to buy the parking assist system as part of a package. So the way I saw it, I wanted the heated leather seats, that is Liz, but in order to get Liz, I also had to buy the parking assist system, which was Kevin. Although I initially thought I did not need this extra feature, Kevin, I came to realize I was wrong. When Liz was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, our world changed overnight. When I entered her hospital room, The morning after surgery, Kevin handed me a detailed list and said, this is what Liz needs. I need you to go out and get this stuff. Yes, ma'am, I replied. I immediately knew the very best person to manage Liz's illness was standing right in front of me. Elizabeth and Kevin's long and unusually close relationship now had a life-sustaining purpose. We had Liz with us so much longer and in better health because of one person, Kevin. Thank you. I think true courage can be a little ambiguous and hard to spot, but when you do see the real thing, you know it. I know Liz's battle with ovarian cancer was courageous. Liz was sent home to hospice care in January, but she stunned all the doctors when she dutifully returned for a chemo appointment 10 days later. They called her the miracle patient, and our nurse said Liz's recovery had lifted their entire practice. Don't leave the court, Liz would say. Liz never gave up. Only her body did. Elizabeth was most proud of our two sons, Peter and Andrew. Elizabeth loved being a mom. She wanted healthy boys and got them. Liz always said she was a boy's mom. Last week, when Liz could only communicate a few words, her final attention was to Peter and Andrew. She instructed Peter to complete his drug and background testing paperwork for his, for his upcoming job and shared Andrew's detailed hotel reservations with us for his graduation next May. That Elizabeth used her last energy being a mom should surprise no one. You know those ridiculous warning signs when you pump your gas not to top off your gas tank or the station will blow up? You've seen them. Well, when it came to raising Peter and Andrew, Elizabeth ignored all those warnings and poured everything into Peter and Andrew right over the brim. Her fuel was her love and wisdom, energy, and hard work. Peter and Andrew were the containers to be filled. And you both also share a link with this special community here today. Things that we liked, enjoyed, and loved about Elizabeth are within our group here today, be it her comfortableness, competitiveness, love of people, courage, leadership, or motherhood. Liz was a mirror to us. She reflected us. When you looked at Liz, you saw the best in you. Elizabeth's truest and enduring legacy through Peter and Andrew and all of us is to share the spirit, Liz's spirit, our spirit, with others each and every day. Elizabeth, we love you. I love you. Always, 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 and forever.
I'm Andrew Green, Elizabeth's younger son. Aside from her humor, street smarts, and enviable dark complexion, my mom and I also shared a love of reading. She was, as you may have heard by now, in 2 book groups. It was this trait that led me to the book Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail by Cheryl Strayed, about a woman whose mom dies when she is about my age now. Strayed decides to hike the Pacific Crest Trail to cope with the loss of her mother. I remember thinking, wow, we both spent time in Minnesota, suffered through hikes, and had a wonderful relationship with our mom. Though, to be honest, I never liked hiking, and it was this one who at camp actually went through with this 6-week Pacific Northwest trip. That said, Strayed said something about her mom, a comment that I continued to wrestle with until my own mom passed on. She said, I didn't get to grow up and pull away from her and bitch about her with my friends and confront her about the things I wish she'd done differently, and then get older and understand that she had done the best she could, and realize that what she had done was pretty damn good, and take her fully back into my arms again. When my mom and I would argue, and I threatened to leave, fail a test, anything, she would laugh and ask, "Is that a promise?" It was infuriating, but it was also a testament to how well she knew me and the years she spent dealing with me. After all, I was a little asshole, as my mom said, for whom the grandparents wouldn't take off their coats when visiting me as a baby because I would start screaming within minutes of their arrival. But I was her little asshole, and within minutes, she would be in my room, and I would somehow be sitting on her lap while she gave me a rocking chair talk. My mom, like most moms, made some mistakes. She pushed me into a lot of sports I didn't want to play, tried to make a lot of friends for me that I didn't ask for, and even put me in this weird dress thing when I was little, the picture of which is in our living room. Look out for it at the Shiva. But her countless successes eclipsed those few mistakes by far. She lived through her children, but that's what made her so special. She was so involved that I would regularly see her around school. In fact, multiple times a week, people, both kids and parents, that I barely knew, would mention that they saw my mom that day. If I had an issue freshman year, my mom would ask if I wanted her to come down to St. Louis. And that was a big deal for her. She considered the drives down I-55 some of the most boring of her life. She taught me how to ride a bike, succeed in school, and even flick off bad drivers on Lake Avenue. Oops, I remember her saying, "I think that's someone I know." I wish my mom could be here to watch me graduate and see the rest of my life unfold. But she did get to see the two great people that her children have grown up to be. Thank you, Mom, for your advice, advocacy, friendship, acceptance, love, and most of all, for putting up with such a high-strung son. Before she died, she said how proud she was of me. But I am even more proud of her. Reflecting on myself and seeing family and friends here today, I know she would agree when I say, "Mom, you did a damn good job." Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Peter, the older son, and please let me promise you that my speech will be shorter than my dad's. Since my mom loved to drive, I thought it'd be best if we all take a bit of a road trip here, as it was something that my mom always liked to do. My mom and I shared a passion for cars. My love of cars must have stemmed from her, because if it were up to my dad, she would still have the dark green Volvo station wagon that he bought in 1991. My mom often spoke about her Suzuki Samurai, which she negotiated and bought at the San Francisco Auto Show and drove back with Kevin, only to find that it was not made for the potholes of Chicago. She never forgot to mention her Honda Prelude, which had a sunroof, of course, a Liz Green option. My mom was an avid sports enthusiast. She watched any game, any time, and listened to sports radio on our road trips home from Michigan. We all thought that my mom would make a terrific sportscaster. She would always disagree with the calls made by referees and would feel completely defeated every time the Bears lost. She lost hope in the Cubs many years ago, and even though she did watch and listen to the games from time to time, she quickly changed the station to ease her agony. Some of the most notable days of my childhood would be of my mom watching what my dad called her TV sports on the weekends. My dad, for reasons we still don't understand, weirdly started to refer to my mom as the lady, and eventually this developed into the phrase, "the lady is watching her TV sports." My mom spent much of her time involved in our schools. She was the president of the Wilmette Community Nursery School. Her leadership there was instrumental in having the current playground built, which includes a racetrack for riding bikes and toy cars. I still peer over the fence from time to make sure that it's still there. I also reminisce about those years when I was on the other side of the fence as a preschooler and would point to each car during pickup time and could tell which person belonged to each car. My mom was always on the phone, making it perfectly acceptable to have phone directories in her glove compartment at all times. When I was born, she even had an expensive built-in phone installed in our old Honda Accord. But because she used the phone for more than just emergencies, my dad had to cancel that phone line. Despite the fact that my mom has had 5 cars over the last 20 years, the contents of the glove compartment have remained the same. Tapes of Raffi and Barney always lay ready to be played, and CDs of Bruce Springsteen and Fleetwood Mac are still inserted in the disc drive as they were among her favorite to listen to while driving to Michigan. Regardless of wherever she went, her heart was always in the right place. She was our advocate and taught us what it means to be generous and kind. She was a great mom. Being the Liz Green that I know, I can see her getting into her car, wearing her paddle clothes, and holding her work bag on her shoulder, always doing the things she loved. She was many things to many people and left no regrets on the table. Mom, even though you're no longer here with us, we are still driving with you. Dad, Andrew, me, Kevin, and everyone else are sitting by your side as you navigate the way through our rest of our lives. Bye, Mom. I'll miss you.
I'm Susan Klein, Elizabeth's sister. Thank you all for being here. I know she would have loved the crowd. Growing up, Elizabeth and I always shared a bedroom. When we were very little, and I was 5 and Elizabeth was 6, we lived in a Cape Cod-style house on Foster and Central Park, having just moved to Evanston from New Haven, Connecticut. Sometimes at night, I had nightmares and woke up very afraid. I would get out of bed in the dark, my heart pounding, tiptoe over to Elizabeth's bed, jostle her and whisper, "Elizabeth, can I get into bed with you? I'm scared." She would nod and move over, and I would climb into bed with her. I was immediately comforted and fell soundly asleep. You see, Elizabeth was very comforting, the way anyone would want a sister to be. She always seemed to have the right perspective to say the right thing to make me feel better. She was only 15 months older than I was, but she was always my big sister, who I looked up to and relied on for unconditional support and good advice. My sister Margaret and my brother Matt, who were 12 and 14 years younger than Elizabeth, also looked up to her as the oldest, who anchored the family with her generosity, humor, sense of family history, and zest for life. Elizabeth was always on my side. In our family, we loved to reminisce. And sometimes Elizabeth would say that she had a tough time when she was growing up because she didn't feel popular and some kids were mean to her. I didn't notice any of that, probably because even if she felt she was not as popular or didn't get as good grades as I did, I never experienced even a hint of jealousness or competitiveness, only love and support. She never tattled on me so I wouldn't get in trouble when I did something bad. I remember on one of our family car trips, we got into an argument and I bopped her on the head with a tin container. There was a nice round bump on her head. I begged her not to tell on me, and of course she didn't. She always looked out for me and I for her. As a matter of fact, thinking about it, maybe she bopped me on the head, and I was the one who didn't tattle. It was so long ago, I can't be sure. Now, Elizabeth would remember because she had an incredible memory. Liz could even recount memories of being in her playpen when she was 3 years old and we lived in Canton, Ohio. Maybe that's because she so enjoyed life and took in its poignant moments in such detail and with such understanding. Many of you may recall the wonderful eulogy Liz gave for our mother. Somehow she was able to capture and put into words the essence of who our mother was, with funny stories and anecdotes, because Liz was such a good observer, taking in and cataloging what was happening around her to be able to share the memories later with welcome humor. Liz was fun and funny. I can picture her now laughing and cracking a joke with a big smile. She embodied the phrase joie de vivre. She loved going to her best friend Kevin's house in Michigan with her family and for girls' weekends. She took full advantage of the pool, the tennis court, and chance to barbecue, eat Michigan blueberries, and sip gin and tonics. She loved going to Disneyland, not just when her kids were little, but any time. Never mind the crowds, the sun, or the lines. She would be there when the gates opened and leave with the last guests at midnight. She loved going to Aspen, Colorado, which is a major reason why I bought a place there several years ago. She loved sitting on the deck, soaking in the sun, looking at the mountains. At her favorite lunch spot there, she'd say, "Don't you just love this place?" Last year there, she decided we should both get some neon-colored running shoes, saying, "Aren't these shoes just so much fun?" She made even simple things special. Liz knew her priorities, and number one was her family, and in particular, her two boys, Peter and Andrew. She was a successful female banker when it was a male-dominated field, but decided to leave it all behind, and new achievements followed. As you've heard, Elizabeth was president, or asked to be president, of every organization she joined. My brother Matt thought at the time that all mothers did everything Elizabeth did. It was only later he realized she stood apart as an alpha mom. As you've also heard, to say Elizabeth loved sports is an understatement. When we were about 3 and 4 years old, an aunt took us to a toy store and told us we could pick out anything we wanted. I immediately ran over to the glass counter and chose a fake 5-cent ring. Elizabeth, she picked out an expensive golf set. Even at that very young age, she was on her way to sports fanatic. My sister Margaret, who works in radio, says Elizabeth knew more about sports than most of the sports professionals at the radio station. Unlike everyone else in our family besides my brother Matt, Liz herself was athletic, playing on the high school badminton team, going to tennis camp in the summer, playing golf and paddle and skiing. As a teenager in the summer, while I was home trying to catch air-conditioned breezes, in the humidity of the Chicago summers, Elizabeth spent hours at Central Park hitting a tennis ball against a backboard, perfecting her stroke. When the two of us visited our grandparents, who we called Oma and Opa in the German way, every summer in Canton, Ohio, she beat me at tetherball at the playground 100% of the time. I tried, but never had a chance. Liz and I often commiserated that neither of us ever liked to be alone and attributed it to our close relationship, always sharing a room, until she went to college. Fortunately, while fighting the battle for her life, she was never alone. Not only did a continuous stream of friends come by on a daily basis to keep her company and her spirits up, but her best friend Kevin gave her unfailing, loving care 24/7 until the very end. Kevin, words of thanks cannot suffice. Scott, too, was by Elizabeth's side all along the way, giving her encouragement and never ceasing to search for what might help her. My sister Elizabeth was taken away too soon, but we are grateful because many people never experienced unconditional love and support of anyone, let alone a wonderful sister. There is something the Jews say when someone dies. May their memory be for a blessing. This means that each time you think of them or say their name, they are blessed, and so are you. The memory you have of them turns into a blessing for you. Elizabeth will always be with us. Our memory of her is a blessing for all of us who are fortunate enough to have had her in our lives. We love you, Elizabeth. Thank you for all you gave us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I can't quite believe I'm up here, but it looks like Liz has packed the house, which is as it should be. I'm Nancy Qasim, and I'm honored to speak today on behalf of Liz's many friends. I promise to be short and sweet and direct, which pretty much sums up Liz's salient characteristics, if you think about it. Pretty sweet, definitely short, and unabashedly direct. We are her friends. We've come out in droves today to honor her and show thanks and to share our love for her with her family and amongst her friends. Each of you has come from a particular corner of Liz's life to which she devoted her considerable energy, intellect, and passion. You come from her years running the Wilmette Community Nursery School, from her double stint at the helm of the New Trier Booster Club, from her work at Mellon Bank to at Properties, from the paddle court to the tennis court, from book club number 1, of which Liz and I were both founding members, to book club number 2, which, frankly, we were always in not-so-secret competition with. A discussion of Liz's friends would not be complete without mention of Kevin Wood, Liz's very best friend. We all concede the title. Liz met Kevin at Mellon Bank and found in her a project, which Kevin says she initially vigorously rejected. Liz apparently thought Kevin was too waspish, not open enough, and, well, went to work. I wonder if Liz could tell, even back then, that this woman possessed the stamina and was capable of the sacrifice necessary to help shepherd her dear friend through an illness of this sort. They were both winners. All of you know why you're here. You're here because Liz made a difference in your life. She took an interest in you, too, in your kids, your spouse, in your job. She asked you questions, sometimes pointed questions. She didn't often let you off the hook. If she took an interest in you, you tried to be worthy of it. You tried to please her in return, as in, if you were me, you tried to bring the best darn dinner ever over last fall when she was down but not out. That beef tenderloin was certainly worth it. But I do think Kate Maloney's chicken soup with curry was the most prized. In any event, when you did please her, she let you know. She let everyone know. If you fell short, you may have also heard about it. But either way, you knew it was because she cared. She cared about whether the game was won or if the dinner party went well or if the presentation was successful. And she enjoyed sharing in one's pleasures and accomplishments. But she also knew that things didn't always turn out well, that life wasn't fair. She didn't much like that, no, but she was practical. She understood that things could be scary, whether it was college selections or rejections, internship interviews, new jobs, job losses, lost or hurting kids, and found kids, ailing parents, and yes, bad diagnoses and fitful recoveries, and then relapses. You had to get through those things too. And she would help. She wouldn't turn away. She asked and she listened, and she often did so in the corridors of the Jewel at the end of the day. Not just with you, but with all the others there, and with Liz, the cashier, who, when I told her of Liz's illness way back when, she told me that, yes, she already knew. She had just got done texting with her. Of course she had. Our Liz Green contributed and led. She gave us advice, and we acted on it. She changed things in our community. She built the playground that still stands at the Wilmette Community Nursery. Second City came to New Trier under Liz's guidance, along with the turf at Northfield. And we all know Liz was a natural and gifted competitor. She won the tanning competition hands down. From the badminton court at ETHS to the suburban courts of paddle tennis and tennis, she loved the thrill of the game, the winning and the losing, and the talking about the winning and the losing. And the sports on TV, was there ever a more avid fan of television sports? Just yesterday, I learned that she loved TV golf best of all. Who knew we shared that interest? Of course, she knew exactly what she was watching, while I just loved the whoosh and the hush and the naps between putts, but I do so wish I could have talked to my friend about our mutual Sunday afternoon pastime. Anyway, the point is, Liz accomplished a lot in her sweet, short life. She had a loving family, great friends, good work she was proud of, and many passions. She lived pretty much how she wanted to and was brave doing so. And at the end, she died that way too, in her greenhouse, with Scott, Peter, Andrew, and Kevin near, Cassie too. As you all know, Liz was a fierce protector and promoter of her children. She loved Peter and Andrew beyond measure, but she also expected much out of them. I saw Peter in the hardware store just last week or so, and I know she won't be disappointed. Not because they may make big bucks, although we hope that befalls them, but because Scott and Liz raised them to have courageous, big hearts and diligent minds, to look out for others as they were looking out for themselves. Because of Scott and Liz's attention, and Kevin's, Peter and Andrew are well on their way to becoming brave and generous men. I take great comfort in knowing Liz knew that. Liz was a delight in our book club for several reasons. They may sound familiar. She was the first to show up. She grabbed the most comfortable seat. She always read the book, and she always spoke her mind. She also prided herself on making excellent book selections. And if you liked a book she didn't, she looked at you in a kind but bemused manner. You couldn't tell whether she thought you were just an oaf or simply misguided. Well, Liz, here's the thing. We may have been misguided every once in a while, but not with respect to you. We knew where you stood, and we were happy and proud to stand with you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kevin Wood, and I have the privilege of being Elizabeth's best friend. We were friends for 32 years, and I liked the first 30 a lot better than the last two. I didn't intend to make a speech today, and when I told Scott that this morning, he suggested that I should at least say 2 paragraphs, because I might always regret if I didn't. So I did even better than that, and I came up with 3. Toward the end of Liz's courageous battle last week, as you've heard, she was giving instructions about her eulogies. She told Scott not to be trite. Good job. And told Andrew not to swear too much. And while that particular directive certainly could have applied to me as well as to Andrew, it turns out that I got no marching orders from her, nor did I seek them, because in our wildest dreams, neither of us could have imagined that I could even be up here today, period. Peter asked her directly what she wanted him to say about her in his speech. She told him the mantra that she had repeatedly said to Scott and me, that she only wanted to be remembered as a good mom. I was with Liz a few years ago when she bought a small plaque that she proudly displays in her kitchen. Many of you here might have the same plaque in your kitchens. It reads, Good moms have sticky floors, dirty ovens, and happy kids. Lizzie loved that plaque. Peter told me that he had wanted to work that into his speech today, but ended up deleting it. I asked him why, and he said, "Well, our floors aren't really that sticky." And I said, "But yeah, that oven's really dirty." So while we can all disagree about the stickiness of Liz's floors or the dirtiness of her oven, there certainly is no debate about the happy kids part. And that, ultimately, is simply how she wanted to be remembered, as a good mom with happy kids. A simple thank you to Scott today grossly shortchanges my gratitude for buying the package. "25 years ago, and allowing me to be such an intimate member of this amazing family." So thank you, Scotty. We would like to express our boundless appreciation to all the medical professionals at Northwestern Memorial who became dear friends to Liz and to Scott and to me during this 23-month journey. While most of them are only known to the three of us, you should all know that in typical Liz Green fashion, they quickly became not just doctors and nurses, but true and treasured friends who became as dear to her as any of you here who knew her longer. So I'd like to acknowledge people that I hope none of you ever have to meet. So thank you to Dr. Nikki Neubauer and her nurse Karen Novak, and to Tina, and to the chemo nurses Drusilla, Michelle, Dawn, and Deb. We would also like to extend our deepest gratitude to the group at Midwest Hospice who became our most recent friends and never failed to amaze us. Elizabeth's uncle, Dr. Andrew Plout, and I were discussing Elizabeth last night, and he mentioned something that he reflects on often in his medical practice when he loses a patient. This was very helpful to me last night, and maybe it will help you today as you think about Liz. It is the notion that every life has breadth as well as length. And that while Elizabeth didn't have nearly the length of life that any of us desired for her or for us, man, was her life a broad one. Goodbye, sweet Lizzie. Rest in peace.
We rise now for our final prayer in the chapel this morning. El Malay Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamse Minucha Nechona Tachad Shechina, Im Kiddoshim V'Tehorim Kuzohar Hakim Masirim, Et Nishmat Elizabeth Ann Green Shalchachal Olama, Baal Harachamim Yastireha Beseter Kanafav Olamim, Vayitzur Bitzur Chachayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hunachalata Vatanuach Bashalom Amishkava Vanomar, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our beloved Elizabeth Green. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it, Still, it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love stronger than death. And as we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that their parent is near and cling unafraid to the trusted hand.